All right, we're starting to have some fun here now that we're beginning to understand how this plugin works. As you can see, what you need to do is in the web portal, which is the dashboard here, this is where we created our account and where we had our API key that was available to us. And when you go to configuration utility, you need to make a configuration. And so I've made a configuration for Sentinel-2. I can do another one based on these existing configurations. So if we wanted to do a full template, for example, we call this full WMS and create a configuration. And we have all these different things: vegetation, agriculture, etc., etc. Now, having created this configuration in the Copernicus web place, we then go to QGIS, and when we've logged in, and make sure we've logged in okay, it says login successful. When you go to create, you will see on the calendar in gray where there's data available. So let's go to this full one, or rather, let's go to this one I just made, full WMS. All right, and you have all these data layers available. So if we want to look at agriculture, it looks like we have agriculture for July 4th, 4th of July, and we've picked this area here. The extent that we're doing is the current window. That would be for the download. This is just going to create a layer in here for the 4th of July of agriculture. And the time range is just going to be this exact date, the 4th of July. So when I hit create, it runs. And bingo, we get a layer that shows the agriculture. And this is WMS, so it's fixed. You're not going to get a lot of information out of here. If we go to transparency, we can make it a little transparent, that's for sure. But when we look at the symbology, it's a single band color data, so we don't see a lot of stuff in here. Our metadata doesn't tell us much, the elevation doesn't tell us much, nor does there's no attribute tables for this. But it does tell us that, it does tell us a little bit about where there's agriculture and where there isn't, because where you see green, that is going to be where you have the agriculture, and it maps onto our base map pretty well so that you can see the agriculture. Similarly, if I want to pick another set here, not agriculture, but let's look at the normalized difference vegetation index. If it'll let me, there we go, and then create a layer for that, you see that the normalized values are mapping on as well to where the agriculture and where the vegetation is, because this is a desert region. So let's double click on this and let us make this a bit transparent so we can see through it, apply it, and it's actually still far too opaque, so let's try this. Yeah, okay. You can begin to see that around here is a lot of desert, and that's brown, and then there's vegetation in these valleys where people are doing the work and irrigating. So that gives us our agriculture was there, and our normalized vegetation index was here, even showing that there's a little bit of vegetation down in here that's captured. Why these aren't captured, I do not know, but that is what the data showed for that time. If you want to look at another date, if you want to look, let's say that we wanted to look at what it was like back in 2004, 20 years ago, if that data exists, but it doesn't. So we can't do anything in 2004. What about 2014? 2014, no, still nada. So it only seems like we began to get that data, yeah, 2020. So we can go 4 years ago. And let's go to September 3rd and do the same thing. We're going to use NDVI and see if there's been any change. So there is our 2020 to be compared with our 2024. And if we really want to see that, then we might as well get rid of our opacity, apply that, and see if, yeah, there has been a change. So let's actually bring 2020 underneath 2024 and say this was 2020 in the area. All right. So in 2020, there's the Ackridge Cemetery Nursery, and there's the village, and it was really dry up in there. And then in 2024, there's been actually an encroachment. There's been a change. And whether you could say it was all good or bad is hard, because let's look at the region as a whole and look at how the 2020 was there and the 2024. So there's 2020. Yeah, it looks like the things were getting drier actually. That's the beginning of a time series that we can look at. We can turn this off now and look at, for example, the agriculture soil adjusted vegetation index. Let's try that for 2020. And then let's go 2024. And come that date. See what that does in terms of 2 years difference. So we are seeing a bit of difference, but I don't know how to interpret this yet because it doesn't have a legend. So we'll learn about that, but it does give you the ability to download all of these data sets. We can go also for the Sentinel-2, and looking at Sentinel-2, we have agriculture, atmospheric penetration, moisture index. So let's look at color infrared for 2024 and stay on that 12th, same date. Let it run, and there you see infrared for vegetation. So I can get rid of, turn those off. And the infrared is a absorption, so that would be vegetation. And so you can see here that these areas are in fact growing things. You see it in the infrared spectrum, which is the whole point of doing spectral analysis with remote sensing. So it is picking up that vegetation at that particular resolution. And here's where it might be interesting. See how far we can go back with this. Can we go back 20 years? Let's see. No, we cannot. Can we go back 10 years? No, we cannot. Can we go back to 2019? Yes. So how far back can we go? Can we go back to 2018? Yes. Keep going back. Can we go back to 2016? Yes. Can we go back to 2015? So we're almost 10 years. One day, just one day. Can we go back to 2014? No. So we can almost go 10 years back by picking this date and creating a new layer. And if we do that, then we can see if we drag this under here. So we have 2015. This was 2015, and this is today. It looks like the vegetation has been going away. So we're getting a sense of a drying environment maybe, because that's what it was, and that's what it is. And yet there is vegetation over here that wasn't present before. So you have to take the good for the bad, and then you'd have to do some analysis to see what's the overall trend. Are we losing vegetation or aren't we? But it does look like we're losing vegetation pretty seriously when you see that. So this is the great thing about using the Copernicus Sentinel data, and I hope that helps you now decide how to use it. I guess it is not necessary to go outside of QGIS in order to do this, except to create your configurations here in Copernicus. But you don't have to go to the Copernicus browser. The Copernicus browser is very powerful, and it's super cool. And if you want raw data that you can play with the symbology of, then yeah, you would want to download from here, getting some of its data collections there, and go to the download button here to download the image, selecting a layer that you want to download. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with Copernicus, and I'm happy that I've reached that conclusion. So it's time to go to bed.